Good morning, kids. Here we are going to continue the topic that is properties of soil 9.4 heading. Now, what all do we have in this property? What all do we have in this property? That is, first property we are talking about here is about the percolation rate of water in the soil. Percolation rate. This we need to actually understand. Now, what exactly is this percolation rate? Percolation is that in common terms we say that this is how with a good speed the water can penetrate down from the surface of the soil, from within the soil. The movement of water, how fast it is when it is passing through a particular type of soil. And we know very well, we have covered in the first lecture of the chapter that the particle size of sand is very, very big. The spaces will be more between the particles, and the spaces between the particles will be very less in case of clay soil. So clay soil is going to hold the water. Remember, there are two terms opposite to one another. One is water holding capacity. The second one is percolation rate. Percolation is if any soil has a good water holding capacity, if any soil has a good water holding capacity, then the soil will be very low in percolation rate. Try and understand. Clay soil, particle size very small, a very good water retention capacity. It can absorb the water like sponge. If it can absorb the water like sponge, it can hold the water. Water holding capacity is more. That means it will not allow the water to pass through it. The moment water is poured on it, it absorbs like sponge. Got it? Water holding capacity more, percolation rate will be less. Opposite in case of sand. Particle of size bigger. As much water you pour on it, it passes and moves down. That means percolation rate is very high. If the percolation rate is very high, the absorption power, the water holding capacity will be very low. Is it understood, everybody? Any doubt in this concept? Once again for the last time. We are comparing.
No doubt, ma'am.
Yeah, very good, very good. There is no harm in revising it once again. Soil particle bigger in case of sand. You pour water on it, it keeps on passing by. Percolation rate is very high. If percolation rate is very high, it cannot hold the water. That means water holding capacity will be less. Clay, particle size is very small. Very, very less air spaces, very less gaps. The more water you pour, the more water gets absorbed in it. Water holding capacity, water retention capacity is very high. That means the percolation rate will be low. Okay? So we are going to write a little bit about this percolation rate and how to measure this, calculate the rate of percolation. How to calculate? How are you going to actually calculate that? So let's see. Percolation rate is equal to, that is milliliter per minute. That is its unit. Amount of water, that is in milliliter, divided by percolation time, and this will be in minutes. So automatically the unit will be ml per minute. That is ml per minute. For example, we are going to take an example to understand that. This way the questions are asked for 2 marks. The question are asked based on this concept. Okay. For example, the amount of water in a sample, the amount of water taken is 200 ml, and it takes 20 minutes to percolate, to move down. And the answer to that will be, of course, 10 ml per minute. Per minute, around 10 ml of water percolates down. And how can we do this activity or this experiment? It's been clearly depicted in activity number 9.4. Now, what exactly is given in 9.4 is this: that if you are taking a PVC pipe or a tube, and in that we are going to fill up it with soil, a particular type of soil, and we will start pouring water on it. This 200 ml of water we have taken, say for example, in a tumbler, and we are pouring on the surface of the soil. Okay? And it takes around 20 minutes completely to percolate down. It is taking around 20 minutes completely so that the water drops are falling down. Percolation. The water is passing through the holes and it is going down. Okay? How long does it take to pass through that layer of the soil? That is what percolation rate is all about. It's clear to all of us? And have you noted down from the board so that we can move ahead? We can move ahead with the next activity. In that activity, we need to understand for activity 9.5, moisture in the soil. For 9.5, that is moisture in the soil, and how we are going to prove that there is this moisture. Even if we are not doing any activity, we can clearly see one thing, that once you are moving in hot sun, that means in the month of summer, if you are going from here to Kota, say for example, you may see this heat wave rising up from the surface of the road. And if you just have a view sideways, there you can see that where we have these fields, the crop fields are there, on the surface of those also you can see those water vapors rising up. Try to observe that. Extreme heat has actually evaporated the water from the surface of the soil. And how can we do that activity? Very simple. If we are taking a test tube that can be heated to a greater extent is actually known as the boiling tube. And in this we have kept a soil sample. And we start providing heat. We start heating it on Bunsen burner. That means the Bunsen burner is almost similar to that of the burner of LPG gas. The only thing is that there we burn LPG in Bunsen burner and with a single hole there, the big single hole is there, and that forms a blue intense flame. And on that, it starts heating up. You are heating the sample of the soil. To prove this activity, they may ask in the exam that how will you prove that there is water, moisture present in the soil? Simple activity. We are heating a soil sample in a boiling tube, and what we see is that there are water droplets on the side walls of the boiling tube. We are actually heating soil. From where these water droplets have come? This water has actually evaporated, which was present in the soil sample, got evaporated and got condensed on the side walls of the boiling tube. Understood? Very simple activity. We are simply heating a soil sample and we are obtaining some moisture content out of it, which proves that moisture of water was already present in the soil sample. So that's all we have to understand under the heading 9.5. 9.6 basically now once again gives us a formula and the way to calculate. Calculation is a bit different here in 9.6 heading. By the time I am preparing the board, please try to read that. 9.6. And 9.6 basically speaks about absorption of water by soil. Absorption of water by soil. We have a moment ago covered about percolation rate. And now we are going to have a formula and a way to calculate the water holding capacity. Water holding capacity of the soil. And how we are going to do that? Again, we are going to take a soil sample, but here in a different way, a little bit different way. We are going to take a funnel, and in that funnel we have attached the filter paper. Of course, it is arranged on a beaker. Now this filter paper, we have made a cone out of it, and in that we have kept the soil sample. And in a measuring cylinder, that means we need to measure actually how much of the water is going into the soil. There is this glass vessel which is actually marked. I'll be showing you in my next lecture both these instruments. We take water in that and we start pouring water from that particular measuring cylinder to this soil sample dropwise. Definitely once you start pouring water on it, it will start absorbing. Okay? We need to note down the time. Once the soil is saturated with water and the water starts coming down dropwise. I repeat, there is variation in the activity. For water holding capacity, you are adding water to that dropwise. After some time, after absorbing to its maximum extent, the water, it cannot retain further. It has absorbed as much as it can, and then it starts pouring down the water dropwise, meaning that beyond this point, it cannot absorb any water in it. What does it mean? That there limits its water holding capacity. Now say for example, in the measuring cylinder you have taken 20 ml of water, and after putting dropwise you have added, and you have added around 10 ml. After 10 ml, if the drops start falling down, that means the remaining amount in the cylinder, How much was that? 10 ml. That 10 ml is the water holding capacity of this soil sample. I repeat again, let me change the example. If you have taken up around 50 ml of water initially, all right, and out of 50 you have started pouring drop wise, it has absorbed 10 ml, 20 ml, 25. After 25, then again slow and steady we kept on pouring 30 ml. After 30 ml, the moment I had added a drop, the drop starts falling down from here. How much of the water the soil has absorbed, water retention capacity will depend on, of course, the measurement of these two. The water that has gone into the soil and the water that remains behind in the beaker or in the measuring cylinder. Okay, I'm going to write down these things on the board, you will come to know clearly. Let's start calculating, that will make the things more clearer. So, for this, weight of the soil, first of all, weight of the soil. For example, we have taken up 50 grams of soil. Initial volume of water in the measuring cylinder. Initial means right from starting. Initial volume of water in the measuring cylinder, and that we are labeling as UML. Initial values are generally labeled with U. And final volume of water in the measuring cylinder, that is VML. Final values generally we indicate by the term V. This alphabet indicates the final value. Now, volume of water absorbed by the soil. How to find out that? That will be U minus V. U minus V ml. I'll be taking up an example to make it clear to you. Weight of the water absorbed. If instead of volume the question is asked for weight. Weight of water absorbed by the soil. That will be U minus V. In place of ml, we are simply going to write down gram. 1 ml equals to 1 gram. In calculation, usually it is so. And percentage of water absorbed. If this we need to find out. Percentage of water absorbed. This you know, for percentage we divide them by 100. So this is U minus V upon 100. This will be its percentage. Let me give you an example. A moment ago we were taking up some example, and let's continue with that only. And let's see if we can understand it in that example. And I'm going to take up that example. Okay, for example, initial volume. We have taken up that 50 grams soil only in our case. Okay, initial volume of water. Say for example, that was 50 ml we have taken up. And soil sample has absorbed around 30 ml. That is final volume of measuring cylinder. 30 has already gone inside the soil. That how much is left in the measuring cylinder? Out of 50, the remaining amount, for example, in the measuring cylinder is around 20 ml. Initially, the water that was there in my glass jar was 50 ml, and finally I found out after doing all that activity, once the water started dripping down, then I saw the volume in my measuring cylinder in that glass vessel was around 20 ml. Okay, so let's start solve the next one. Water absorbed by the soil will be U minus V. This is U, this is V. That means 50 minus 20. That is 30 ml. And if you are talking in terms of grams, then also it will be 30 grams. Now if I want to find out the percentage, U minus V here is 30. 30 divided by 100 divided by 50 into 100 divided by 50 into 100. So the initial volume of the soil sample you have taken was 50 and we multiply it with 100 and you get the percentage. You solve this and tell me how much percentage will it be. By the time everybody is writing, let me tell you, we have taken up an example here. In that example, the initial volume of water was 50 ml, and after we have completed the activity, the final volume of water was 20 ml. Minus these two, we got the water that was actually absorbed by the soil. This is water holding capacity of the soil. This water holding capacity is opposite to the percolation rate. And it is as same as in grams also. Now if you want to find out the percentage, it is this amount of water absorbed by this amount of soil. 50 gram of soil. Multiply that with 100. What will be the answer? Did you solve it? And the answer is, you can tell me the answer.
Ma'am, 60 ml.
60 ml. 60 ml. So yes. 300 divided by 5. Keep your mic at mute. So, here, if we do that, the answer will be, of course. Now, if the soil has got so much of good capacity of absorbing around 60% of the water, then the soil, is it going to be sandy soil or clay soil? What would be its answer? According to us,
Ma'am, clay soil.
it should be clay soil. Okay? Note it down fast. And those who have not noted it down, please take a screenshot.
Noted, ma'am.
You need not say that, please stand again. I'm going to give you 2 more minutes and then I'll start off with the last heading of our chapter. That is, we need to understand about soil and crops, various types of soil. By the time kids are writing this, try and understand, as we have completed in initial part of the chapter also, that various soils will be growing in different types of soil. The crops will be grown in different types of soil. We cannot keep going on using the same type of soil for growing different variety of crops. Please take a screenshot and I am going to give you the answer for 4 different types of crops. 4 different types of crops. Let's do that. Soil and crops. And under that heading, some important line. Soil is affected by wind. Soil is affected by wind, rainfall temperature, rainfall, temperature, light and humidity. And let's see the types of crops that can be grown in various types of soil. The first type of crop. On this also question, very frequent questions are asked based on this. 4 points we are going to write down and they are very, very important tips. Wheat and gram. For these crops, clay and loamy soils. Suitable. Why are they suitable? Because as they are good at retaining water, they are good at retaining water. Second one now. This is about wheat and gram. And second for paddy. For rice you may say. For paddy specifically. Soil rich in clay, that means again clay. Clay soil which is rich in organic matter. Organic matter means humus basically. And having good water holding capacity. The third one, lentils like that of masoor. Lentils. Let me write that also. Masoor. And for them, pay, smooth and pulses, loamy soil. Loamy soil which drain water easily, which drain water easily. And fourth and the last one is about cotton. Cotton. Sandy loam or loam. Sandy loam or loam. That is which drain water which drain water easily and hold plenty of air. Are suitable. So you may keep writing and you may take the screenshot also. By the time you are doing that, let me explain you once again about these crops. Wheat and gram, of course, they can be grown in the soil. The soil that is good at retaining water. Their water holding capacity is high. And of course, they are rich in humus. Here, why we have segregated paddy here? Paddy can be grown solely in the clay soil. It needs plenty of water. You know very well that initially while growing paddy, the paddy crop fields are filled with water up to a level. And in West Bengal, where they grow in the paddy field itself, they also grow and rear the fish, because that is their staple food, rice and fish. So here we need specifically clay soil. For lentils, you can go for loamy soil only, and here I have used one term, sandy loam or loamy soil. Means it contains either some percentage, loamy will contain some percentage of sand, and sandy loam will contain more percentage of sand. Alright, so there we need some air spaces, and of course the water penetration should be more, so there these crops can grow. And the last heading in this chapter is talking about soil erosion. If there is plantation which is reduced on the surface of the soil, then slowly every season, in rainy season, the water is going to fall and it is going to remove the topsoil. As we are moving in rain, and if we do not hold an umbrella, the rain actually hits our head and the body directly. The same way the rain hits there, these plants and vegetation act like umbrella. So they are actually protecting the surface of the soil, and if they are not there, the soil is removed, the topsoil is removed. From a horizon, the topsoil is removed. That's what we call as soil erosion. And if it continues for year after year, it can lead to, the deforestation can lead to soil erosion and which can permanently damage the soil in an area and can turn it barren, desert finally. So the caution is we must keep planting the trees and not do much of the deforestation in any particular area. That's all from my side, kids. Happy learning.